Travel nursing can bring you to places you've never been before. Tell us your story.
Hi, it's Rita at, excuse me, the Travel Nurse Channel. Every Tuesday and Thursday, except not last week, I went on a little trip. I went to the desert, to Tucson, Arizona, and Flagstaff. It was just really nice to get away and be in nature. And glad to be back. I'm glad to see you here virtually. And so I'm going to take a minute to talk to those that wish to sponsor, become sponsors on the Travel Nurse Channel. And those people would be anybody that is recruiting a travel nurse or a travel therapist or a travel tech or a travel LVN or a travel RN and so forth. So to all of you out there, one, I'm glad you found us. Two, it's really a nominal fee. It's $27 a month for you to sponsor us here. And what are we? What is the Travel Nurse Channel? We are a, I guess, a liaison, a community, a place where we discuss all things in the travel realm, and thousands and tens and maybe more than tens of thousands of nurses and travel allied staff come here and check in and say hello. And I want to make sure that I get my comments if anybody wants to comment. So you can be here too, and it's also kind of a shortcut for those travel personnel, for all those travel nurses and allied staff to see you as part of the Travel Nurse Channel, because we do this stuff together. Nobody does it alone. Hospitals and skilled nursing and clinics and urgent cares and surgery centers and all the places where we need our healthcare workers, many of them do need travelers. And today more than ever, today is the 10th of November, 2020. And yeah, so that's why we're here. We thought there was a need. We thought there needed to be a voice. And my husband and I, me in particular, I've been a nurse for a long time, and I've been in the nurse staffing end of things. I was a staff nurse, and then I was a per diem nurse, and then I started my own per diem concern. And I have many years. These are tinted hairs, you know, there's a lot of wisdom hairs in there. And so I've been a nurse for a long time, and in the clinical part of nursing, and in the administrative part of nursing, clinical resource and so forth. Just a minute. I have an itchy nose. There we go. Get rid of the itch. And so, so that I just wanted to throw that out there. And I will also say, anybody that's watching, whether you're a nurse or you're a therapist or you're a technician and you do MRIs or you do speech pathology, or you're a doctor or a surgeon or an employer of nurses, and anybody that is interested in travel nursing or allied nursing, I welcome you to come and tell me your side of it, because I know my side of it, and those, my colleagues and all those contacts I've made over the years, I know their side of it, but it would be wonderful to talk to you. And so my number's there, 800-737-6518. You can email me at Rita, R-I-T-A, at travelnursechannel.com. So that little business is out of the way. And today I thought I'd talk about, it's been a while, so I like to just do basics unless somebody says, what about this or what about that? There are many reasons why nurses choose travel nursing. And so I thought, excuse me, It's very dry. And I just came back from the desert. Well, I came back a few days ago, but it's dry in Southern California as well. So I thought I'd talk about, I'll name 5. I may throw in a few extras, but I'll name 5 pros, okay? What is positive about choosing to be a traveler? And then I'll name 5 cons, why you might have concerns and what kind of concerns could be the bigger concerns for you. Okay, so let's start off with, I like to write things down because I don't trust my memory. Okay, what are the pros? Pros. Okay, so the first thing is, and I have to be broad because I'm talking about places from the East Coast to the West Coast of the United States. I don't delve too much into international because I haven't had that experience and I'm not knowledgeable about it. But travelers do travel all over the world. I know nurses and teachers and many, many different healthcare professionals that have traveled to different parts of the world and really enjoyed it. Those things are different. Those are usually a couple of years at a time. And I just don't have enough information for you to talk about it. So when I talk about travelers, I'm talking about traditional healthcare travel assignments that are generally 13 weeks and/or that's 90 days and/or that's 1/4 of a year, okay? So one of the great benefits of traveling is a great salary. And that salary, okay, so if a nurse makes, and I'm just going to be broad because it could be Montana, it could be North Dakota, it could be Florida, it could be California, it could be Hawaii. So there's a variety, okay? And we know that some places pay more, particularly where there's a cost of living, a high cost of living, and particularly where it's a desirable. Like some people just want to go see the big city of New York or the big city of Chicago and so forth, San Francisco, you know, all these wonderful places. And some people are interested in a quieter pace, a more rural setting. And so there's going to be a variable salary attached to that. But let's just go with like an annual. Annually, nurses will make anywhere from 50,000 to well over 100,000. Well, how does that happen? Well, are they a specialty? Do they have several years of experience? Do they have a unique experience? Are they a labor and delivery specialist? Are they a master's prepared? Do they have many, many years of ICU and so forth? So as a traveler, your experience at traveling, you know, first travel assignment, you're kind of the new kid on the block. You're learning the ropes and so forth. But more than likely, you have a good, strong nursing background to begin with, and you start to travel. Well, as you tally up 1, 2, 3, 4 travel assignments, as you adjust to all these new environments and all the needs that exist there, as you build your reputation as a travel nurse or a other traveler, you know, I'm not just talking about nurses, just use the nurses because that's the biggest use of travelers. But there are many, many other areas. Interventional radiology is one, cardiac cath techs, MRI techs, CAT scan techs, ultrasound techs, you name it. So all of these people are in demand and different companies are looking for all of these travelers. Oh, Paul King says, I have seen a sharp demand for travel nursing. Some say up to $6,000 a month. Oh, thanks for sharing that, Paul. $6,000 a month. Wow. So that would be about, what would that be? 72,000 a year. Oh yeah, that's certainly a doable salary. So if you got 6,000 a month and you traveled for the entire year, didn't take a break for 12 months, that's 72,000. Yes, Paul, that's true. It could even be more. It could even be more depending on where you travel to. So I would say if an average nurse is making a salary of say 50, 52, 56,000 a year, as a traveler working the same amount of time, she could probably double her money. So that is Hey, pro. Yeah, a great salary. Is that a pro? Okay, yeah. So a great salary is a pro. What's another thing? Benefits. Great benefits. That's number 2. That's number 2 on my list. What do I mean by benefits? Now, if you're on staff and you're on staff full time, there are some benefits. You get some holidays, you get some PTO, paid time off. Maybe you get some sick days. Maybe you have an opportunity to go into a savings 4201K. Some kind of savings benefit. So those things do exist with a staff position as a nurse, and I'm not denying that. But the kind of benefits you get as a travel nurse or a traveler are things that you can't get on staff, and those would be things like tax-free stipends. You get stipends for. I'm brewing some tea here, so I want to make sure it doesn't get too cold. It's dry, but we got some cooler weather in Southern California. I mean, not cooler to the rest of the country, but cool for us in November is like, waking up, it's like 40 something. And then, as you can see, there's a lot of sunshine coming through the window, and it always gets up to the high 60s or 70s in November. But anyway, back to my benefits. The benefits, the pros of being a travel nurse, benefits such as tax-free stipends. Tax-free stipends could be for your accommodation, could be for your travel, your actual, the plane ride or the car ride or the bus ride, and however you're getting to your travel assignment. It could be generous reimbursements. They need you now. You were scheduled to go do your travel assignment at the beginning of November, but they say they need you now. They might offer some generous reimbursements to get you there sooner, or bonuses or something. Healthcare and retirement benefits as well you get as a traveler. So the 4201K, you can add onto your own. You can pay into that as a traveler. Your company can pay into that, or you could see what they have as a retirement plan, and so forth. Healthcare is always an option and is provided. So a lot of these things are benefits that you may not even realize as a traveler that you have. And some people go back to their staff job, so they just want to try it out. So 90 days, they just hang on to everything they have. Well, they'll make more salary. What else? Bonuses, I mentioned. There could be bonus. Sometimes there's something called a completion bonus, and that could be anywhere from $100 to $500 to $1,000. And that would be that your assignment went very, very well. You were on time and early for all your shifts. You did a great job. There were no hiccups, and they want you to come back. That's a great completion of a travel assignment. And sometimes just by doing what you're supposed to do, you get a bonus. Now, that doesn't usually happen at a staff position. You may have special discounts offered to you, just like coupons and places to eat and go, and, other little tantalizing benefits that come your way simply because you're traveling. And wouldn't that be nice, to get tickets to a show in New York City, a Broadway show, or whatever. There's lots and lots of deals and discounts and coupons and so forth. And that's something nice about traveling. And there are more. I'm probably not even thinking of all the possible. The housing. You might stay in some housing that just is much more than you expected. And your company, if they're sending you to a new place and you don't know the place, they will provide housing. If you do know the place and maybe you have relatives, that's more income. You could take that tax-free stipend and just put it in your pocket because you're staying with, Aunt Rose. And so that's another benefit. So pros, First one is salary. Second one is benefits. Third one, opportunities. Opportunities, so many opportunities. The first one would be just the adventure of traveling to a new place. I've told stories on previous videos about travelers leaving home, maybe as a couple, a married couple, or friends, you know, two guys or two gals decide they're going to travel, try out their first travel assignment together, and they go to some place they've never been. Maybe they've never been to Los Angeles, and they start an assignment in Los Angeles. So they get to see a big, bustling, huge populous place that is sort of exciting from them if they're from a smaller town. So that's an opportunity. It could be an opportunity not just for you, but for your family to have an adventure together. Maybe you choose to go up in Northern California where you have the great Yosemite. You get to see beautiful parts of the state, the sequoia trees, the giant, giant trees, the nature, the hikes. They do a lot more exciting things up there that it's not my choice to do, but a lot of things go on up there in Yosemite, and it's a wondrous place. Somebody is asking how many nurses are required per patient. That is probably going to vary a little bit from state to state. So if you are in one state and traveling to another state, just go online to Department of Health, to the BRN, the Board of Registered Nurses. And if you're a tech, you go to whatever your licensing board would be, and you will find out what those ratios are. Traditionally, in ICUs, it's 1-to-1. It could potentially be 2-to-1. That depends on the acuity of the patient. Maybe they're just cardiac patients or medical patients, but generally it's 1-to-1. Sometimes it's 2 nurses to 1 patient, 2-to-1. So just depending on the severity of that patient. But it's generally 1-to-1 in the ICU. It's 4-to-1 in telemetry. In med-surg tele, it might be 5-to-1. And those are more, and then it's going to vary for ER nurses and labor and delivery nurses. A lot of the critical areas, it's very much 1-to-1. So that is going to vary in the department you work in the town or state that you work in, and it's going to be dictated by acuity and what that state board of registered nurses or whatever licensing board you're following, if you're a nurse or if you're an allied staff member. So, but it's generally around 4 or 5 for med-surg, about 5 for med-surg, 4 for telemetry, cardiac patients, a 1-to-1 for ICU, and then the ER, it's going to keep moving because patients come in and out and through the ER. So you may have 3 or 4 patients at any given time, 2 on their way out and 2 more coming in, and you stay darn busy in the ER. God bless our ER staff. Thanks. Great question. How many nurses required per patient? Great question. Okay, back to the pros of traveling. So now we've talked about 3 things. We've talked about, rest my cord there. We've talked about great salaries, great benefits, and then great opportunities. Yeah, opportunities for adventure, to travel, to go to places you may have not had an opportunity to go to, and maybe to take your family with you. So see things like I mentioned, the sequoia trees in Yosemite National Park, maybe in the Dakotas, we have national monuments there. So many different places that it would maybe offer an opportunity to people that haven't had those opportunities. I'm older, so I've traveled a little. So I've been to a few states. I certainly haven't been to all of them. And I think those opportunities and those adventures are priceless. Yeah, San Francisco. I mean, who could afford to live in San Francisco or New York City? But you can go and stay in those cities as a traveler and still make great money. So that's 3 of them. The 4th one I want to say is freedom. Freedom is just so important. In these political times, we worry about our freedoms, right? But the freedom I'm talking about is to choose. to choose your schedule, to choose when you're going to take time off, to choose whether you're bringing your family or not, to choose whether you need, you want to opt out for retirement benefits or 401ks or housing or, stipends for the travel, stipends for your car expenses, all these tax-free wonderful things, but you have more freedom. Nobody is making up your schedule. Well, of course, yes, I shouldn't say that. If you're going on a 13-week assignment, you can put down your scheduling preferences. And if you're only available to do days, that needs to be decided before your travel assignment, so there's no surprises. If you're only available to do nights, that has to be decided before a contract is signed. But I can't say there's that much flexibility in your schedule other than what you agree to. So if you're going to travel as an acute nurse, say in an ICU or a telemetry unit, you're probably going to work 12-hour shifts. That's a commitment of 3 12-hour shifts per week or 6 12-hour shifts per pay period, which is 2 weeks generally. That gives you 8 days off, 8 days off. So, but that you don't get to necessarily control whether those 8 days off include 1 weekend or 2 weekend or 1 weekend day. You don't necessarily get the schedule of your choice. Sometimes, if it can be wrangled, if the whoever is the supervisor or manager in charge of the schedule will look at your request along with her own staff members. Now, keep in mind, staff members could potentially have been there 10, 20, or 30 years, and you just arriving for 90 days, but they will do their best. Many managers will do that. They, happy employees make a happy supervisor. So if you really, really like to do some online thing every Wednesday evening or whatever, if you prefer to have Wednesdays off, for example, or you prefer to have Sundays off, you can certainly request it and you might get it. But keep in mind, in a pay period, in a 2-week period, you're working 6 12-hour shifts. That leaves you with 8 days to yourself, whether it's 1 day on, 1 day off, 2 days on, 2 days off, 2 days on, 1 day off, 2 days on, 2, 3 days off. However it works out, you still have your me time. And I think that that's a lot of freedom, and to visit and learn and visit a new city. And anyway, so I put freedom in there as that you get to choose when you start and finish your assignment. You get to see the cities and places and states that you maybe otherwise might not have been able to. And I think it's very, very special kind of freedom that being on staff may not afford, because being on staff is a huge commitment and a beautiful one. And you become part of a family, and you may work crazy hours. I know I did one time when there was a real strong need for for private duty intensive care, followed by private duty rehab and private duty care for one patient. And it was someone related to someone famous, and they were very selective about who they chose. And so when they asked me to do it, it was understandable, and it was an honor. And I had small children, so for me to work 5 12-hour shifts was not an easy decision. But because I was on staff and because there was a strong need, I talked it over with my husband, and we did it because we knew it wasn't going to be forever, and we knew it was going to benefit our family financially, but it was also going to benefit my employer during that special time when we had somebody that was very, very ill and kind of a VIP, and went from acutely ill and critical care into a rehab situation. So they really wanted good continuity of care. And myself and 2 or 3 other nurses were the primary providers. So we worked a lot of shifts. So I was still free. It's America. I was free to make those choices, but I made a choice that choice of loyalty to my employer. And as a traveler, you will feel those kinds of loyalties, but your commitment is your commitment to the contract. So if you sign up for full time and you meet that commitment, you're doing the best you can. If you want to, you're asked to work another shift and you want to do that, you're certainly free to do that, but you're only obligated to what the contract says. So if you're working full time and they're 12-hour shifts, you have the freedom of having 8 days to yourself during those 2 weeks, whether they're broken up or together. It's a lot of freedom. And then finally, I thought something that would be a pro, 5. I'm only giving you 5 today because I don't want to be too boring and take up too much of your time. But the 5th thing I wanted to talk about is the upgrades to your resume. The bonuses on your resume. When you work as a traveler, I'm going to look here at my reference notes. The bonuses on your resume. Okay. The bonuses on your resume are that you go into potentially 3 or 4 times a year into different situations, into different climates, into different units and departments, and become a team member and do your best and create a range of skills that you might not have in that same period of time on staff. So that's a real positive. You know, the skills and the professional treatments and duties that you perform in one hospital can vary greatly from one hospital to the other. And so you can just keep piling on those special skills. And yeah, I think resume building is a great thing. And as a nurse, period, that's part of your career that you want to do. I know when I was a newer nurse many moons ago, I wanted to do every kind of nursing. I wanted to work in the ER. I wanted to work in the ICU. I wanted to try the dialysis. I wanted to do home health. I wanted to do so many things because I wanted to be this well-rounded nurse. And it's too bad in the early part of my career that I didn't. I'm going to have a sip of my tea because I'm chilly. Just the right temperature. Okay, I wanted to be this well-rounded nurse that could just handle just about anything. Well, you take a couple of travel assignments, you will start to realize how that enhances your skill level, your critical thinking, and build that resume, right? What else did I note here? Yeah. So you can have an experience in a small critical access hospital, or you can have experience in a big university teaching hospital. So you can have all of that, where if you stay on staff, it's going to be one or the other or somewhere in the middle. And that's fine too. These are choices, but I'm trying to point out the pros. And I'm gonna look at my little nurses in the picture today, my little marionette and my little stuffed nurse. I'm gonna stop at 5, so I can be fair and talk about the cons too. Let's see, did I leave anything out? Oh, you know what? I think this is something too. I'll add it. I always know I say 5. But okay, so the 5 pros we've talked about is a great salary, great benefits, great opportunities, freedom to make a schedule and a lifestyle that you want, and then resume upgrading. No question about it. You will upgrade your resume with all of these varied assignments in different places and different facilities that are, maybe oncology based, or maybe a university teaching setting, or maybe a small critical access hospital, in a rural place. So many great opportunities. I just wanted to point that out. But I want to be fair. I'm gonna go. Okay, pros. We've talked about the pros. We're moving on. We're going to the cons. Yeah, there can be some cons, right? Right. Okay. So the cons, which I don't really think there are a lot of cons, but I guess number one, it just might not be for you. It might not. It's not for everybody. So I didn't put that on the list, but I just thought of that, so I'll say that. It just might not be suited for you. Your job, and it was for me for many years, my work life was like my home away from home, and I couldn't even imagine doing any per diem. And then I did many, many years of per diem. When my kids were small, it was just wonderful. But the first thing I might say might be a con is that when you're on staff, there is sort of a, what do they call that? A pay scale ladder. I mean, I don't know how much that applies now, and it's incremental. It could be annual or whatever. So incrementally, your salary could start to grow slowly but surely by being on staff. Maybe they offer a little pay raise if you do X amount of teaching. You know, maybe you help the department by being a resource. Maybe they offer another little something if you educate yourself, get more education. So those kinds of little incremental pay raises aren't necessarily going to be available to the traveler. So that could be a con. We're talking about cons to traveling as a nurse and or as an allied person. Another thing is that there's probably not, I mean, there could be some, but I'm not aware of it, is paid time off. Generally, when you're in a full-time staff position, you do get, you may accrue it. It may be usually, is it a week the first year or 2 weeks? You have paid time off. So you're earning vacation pay. I'm not saying that can't happen as a traveler, but it definitely will happen in a staff position, is that you will start to accrue some paid time off. So when you go on vacation, you get some money, but it takes a while. You have to earn it over the years. So the first year on staff could be a long one while you're waiting for some of that part-time paid time off money to accrue. Okay, there is another con that if you're a traveler, you will not have the same employer. You may continue to work with the same company and the same recruiter. You may try out different travel companies, but when you're on staff and working your way, my friend has been, I think, 29 or 30 years with the same hospital employer. She used to have 2 jobs. So she used to have 2 steady employers for quite some time, but almost 30 years. So she has had the same employer. She's had different supervisors over the year, but that works for her. So when you're a traveler, yes, your company that you travel with, if you keep the same company and the same recruiter, there's going to be a familiar relationship there. That's quite nice and it works for you and so forth. But when you're on staff, the con to traveling is that you won't necessarily have the same employer, because you may travel, say you live in the Midwest, so you decide to, in the winter, travel to Arizona and Florida, and then in the summer maybe travel to Northern California or San Francisco. However you do your assignments, you will have different supervisors, different environments, so you're dealing with different people. And that can be super positive, building new relationships. But for some people, it's a con. They want to work for the same employer. They want to know what they're getting all the time. So there's a comfort level. And so with traveling, you won't have necessarily the same leadership every time. It's going to change as you travel. Okay. The fourth con, which may or may not be a con actually, but is family time. If family time is important to you, then as a traveler, you're thinking, I'm going to leave my family for 13 weeks. I don't like doing that. I've never done that before. Maybe I'll have a long weekend and I can fly back or take the bus back and, you know, have a weekend with them or something. But you can have family time and they can partake in your travel adventures. So that's an opportunity that you might want to think about. I've talked about it in previous videos where travelers had a young child and either the husband or the wife was the nurse and was going to the hospital to do the work. And I think it was the wife was a pediatric ICU nurse. She worked nights. So during the day when she was sleeping, Dad would take their little toddler and go to the park and go on hikes or go to the gym and keep her busy with as many cost-effective things that he could think of so his wife could get a good sleep. And then they'd have a nice meal together and she'd go do her night job. So that was an adventure for the entire family. And because they had all those pros, you know, the opportunity and the housing, you know, free housing or stipend for housing and, you know, the tax-free stipends and so forth, they were saving for their new young family to eventually buy a home and so forth. So traveling for them was not a deterrent. It was not a loss of family time. They were together and they were on an adventure together. So it can go either way. It may be a con. It may be very difficult to leave family members, older family members, younger family members. I did want to throw that in. That's something to think about. If you haven't traveled and you're thinking about traveling, how are you going to be 13 weeks away from your home base with all your support and your family members? Or are you going to take some of them with you? So, and then finally, number 5, I talked about resume building on the pro side, right? That all these different opportunities and adaptations that you made to new environments, maybe even got some new skills thrown in. You worked at a teaching hospital on one assignment. You worked at a rural critical access hospital somewhere else. You worked in a oncology clinic and another. So you accrued all these wonderful resume building upgrades to your resume. Well, if you're on for a staff person, you don't want to see all that mobility, right? If you're a staff person, bouncing around from job to job is not a good thing. But as a travel person, it is. So the con would be if you're thinking about traveling and you want to know what the cons are, that it would be a little bit more effort to keep up your resume because there would be a lot of every 13 weeks potentially, unless you extended to do a double, that would be half the year. You're going to have to keep up with that resume building because you're going to have a lot of experiences as you do these travel assignments. So that's what I wanted to talk about today, the pros and cons of traveling. There are many more. I just touched on them. I did want to reach out today to not just the nurse travelers and the allied travelers, but to all those who employ them. I welcome you to give me a call, to email me, or to just drop in if you're watching this video on Facebook on a Tuesday or a Thursday, because you could sponsor your company, yourself, your recruiter, for a nominal fee. It's $27. It hasn't changed in a long time. And we do get tens of thousands of travelers on the Travel Nurse channel regularly. So I'd love to talk to you, and I can on this little venue, my videos, I can bring in 3, 4, I don't even know, maybe a dozen people, and we can talk about what you want to talk about as far as employing travelers and benefits I may not have mentioned. You know, I was talking about tax-free stipends and housing and accommodations and so forth all over the country, all over the world. Actually, I know travel positions exist in other countries, but the ones I know about are more in the United States, so that's what I talk about. Maybe you could shed some light on international travel. That would be awesome. So I'm going to I had an anonymous person ask me the nurse-patient ratio. I had Paul King ask me about with the increased demand for nurses, are they making $6,000 a month? Yes, Paul King, they are making $6,000 and more. So yes, there's a big need for our travel nurses. The pandemic continues, and yeah, and the opportunity for great salaries and great benefits are out there. And so good luck to everyone. I will be back Thursday. I have no plans to travel for a while. So stay well. Thank you for your service. And call me anytime. I don't want to be here talking alone all the time. I want to talk with you. And I think other people are anxious to hear what you have to say as well. So this is Rita at the Travel Nurse Channel. Generally here Tuesdays and Thursdays from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. You'll find me on Facebook and YouTube. Lots of archives if you've missed anything. Last week I was away in the desert in Arizona, and I'm back. And I'm very glad to be back. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.